There's a big momentum now we can use. It's not so easy to talk with the finance guys of the government.
So welcome to our latest edition of Gita's My Journey to Impact. Today we're honored to have my friend Sebastiaan on this show, who in my perspective lives and breathes impact. He doesn't even have to call it impact. He is in every part of his being. He is his impact. So we're really honored to have you here, Sebastiaan, to share with us your journey to how you came to be at a point where you decided to dedicate your life towards positive impact. What was the journey towards that? Was there a defining moment that shifted your mind or your soul set, and what happened afterwards? So we'd love to embark on a journey with you. Why don't you start talking about your beginnings and yourself a little bit to ease in, and I will come in with questions.
Okay, thank you for that interview, for the chance to tell a bit about what I am doing each day. And yeah, I'm Dutch, so I'm born in the Netherlands, in the most beautiful country of the world with the best people. No, and my family is only our people what are traders and makelaar. I don't know, so they selling houses and doctor and such stuff. No farmers at all. And we find out that our family is coming from England, from Portugal, and from Poland. And so we are not so real Dutch, but somehow we are a few hundred years in Holland. And somehow when I was young, I started windsurfing. I have no money, so I have to make some money. So I found a farmer what needs some young guys to pick the apple and to harvest the vegetables. And and I get a bit of money for that, not so much. Maybe it was 20 gulden a day. So it was not so much, but for me it was a good amount of money. So I started there with farming in my younger years, and then somehow I get infected with nature and I always loved animals and all the, let's say, the feeling and the atmosphere, what I could feel as a young guy. And I also saw that the landscape gets more poor and poor in the years, so they always cut the trees down, and the fields get bigger. And I was sad about it. It was somewhere was a sadness in me. And then on a little farm, we planted hedges and start to make a little landscaping into that big world. It was only 20 hectares. And so with 14 years old, I knew I would be a farmer. It was very clear. My father was not really enthusiastic about that, but he said you have to study economics or something where you can make money, and a farmer, I will not support her. So I go out. I went away from home with a very early stage. So 13 years old, I said, okay, that will be not work with us. So I moved to the farmer, living on the farm. And so I started, I was like, how do you say, adopted farmer's son, somehow. And then with 16, 17, I was on the high school, and I have a really good teacher, was teaching history. And I'm always very into history. And he said to me, please, you should write. He always said to me, we have two Sebastiaans in this class, and I was the farmer Sebastiaan. And he said to me, yeah, you should write a scriptie, I don't know, a work about the history of the agriculture in Europe. And that was somehow an impulse, because then I start reading in the 17 in the old centuries what happened to the agriculture, and that you saw that the agriculture get more like an industry. There was no agriculture anymore. There was no culture. It was an agro industry. And then I understand why the landscape gets so ugly, and why the water is poisoned, and all the stuff. And in Holland, you have more cows and pigs as people. So there's so much shit around that it's very, very, the environment is very bad. But it was only a feeling. Then I go to a farmer school, others to study agriculture. My father didn't spend lots of money on me because he said this all bullshit, and so long when you don't take a serious study, I will not finance you. So I worked day and night on other farms to finance my study. And at 23, I was ready. And then I started my first farm in Germany. So I rented a farm in Germany, and they said, okay, I will show everybody what I can do biodynamic farm. And so I started farming with 50 cows and 150 hectares at the cheesery in the shop, and worked like hell 8 years long, 7 years long. And then I sold everything, because the problem of that farm was it was in private ownership, and the owner didn't want to invest any money into the farm, and the roofs weren't good anymore, and the rain is coming in, and so on. And I was tired after 7 years of fighting, and so I gave up and sell all my cows and my machinery and so on, and then a few things in between. But then Manfred Klett, that is the somehow icon of the biodynamic agriculture in Europe, and he was 25 years, he was the leader of the Association of Biodynamic Agriculture at the Goetheanum in Switzerland. He asked me somehow, now it was another way, I don't know how long it should be, our story, but somehow a good friend of me takes me to Poland. He said, yeah, I know somebody there that's Italy guy, and he makes apples in Poland, and somehow that farm is exciting. You have to go there. You have to see that. So we go there, and then we was on the Jugovo, and 2,000 hectare farm, completely close together, without any conventional farmers inside, and a lot of cows, and not really managed farm. And so I was 2 days there, and after 2 days, I go, what a mess here. So I went back. In that time, we lived in Hamburg, and I didn't think about it so much anymore. But in that one day, Manfred Julian, that was his name, he asked me, please help, because all the farmers are in the Baltic Sea, and they don't have time to work with the employees. Please tell the people how to make silage, how to do that. So in that few days, I teach the people a bit how to do it another way, and that was after 1 year later. It was my own, how do you say, my own employees, so my colleagues. And 1 year later, I was started a breeding project for a long fertility cows. Also, I still do that. It's 70 years old. It's European product for natural breeding. That means that you have cows that have no problem, but are feeded with the food of the own farm, produce a good amount of milk, are economically successful, and very healthy without any veterinary costs. Yeah? So without antibiotic, and each year are calf without problem. So that is a very good base breeding program for farmers. Also, especially that the farmers himself can breed his own cows, is not dependent on the industry. And then I was around about 30 years old, and I saw that the whole agriculture depend only on industry. So the seeds industry, the sperma industry, the breeding industry, the fertilizer industry, then the guys would buy the stuff. So the only risk was in the agriculture, and all the guys around make money, only not the farmer. The farmer didn't make so much money. And now nowadays, you know that that whole agriculture was only based on fossil energy is a loss. So the farm that I'm managing now, it's 950 hectares. We have our own compost, we have our own chicken, we have our own cows, we have our own rotation in our crop rotation. We have enough manure. So we only are dependent on that stupid fuel for our tractors at the moment still. That's a pity. And we need some energy from the grid to run the pumps and so on. But for the rest, we are independent. So we have not so much problem in that crisis we have now in the world. And but then Manfred Klett asked me to come, and we go there. I go there with my first wife and my 3 kids, and I said to Katharina, I said, I will tell them what I think about that project, because the cows was really bad healthiness, and it wasn't good managed, that farm. And then suddenly I sit there in a round with people, and also the software I gave system was there. And really nice people, good people, what wants to do good for the world. And they asked me, okay, what will that project cost when we build on Jugobo? Could you think about that in the night? How much money do you need to rebuild the whole infrastructure? So all the buildings, all the I didn't thought about that moment about the fertility of the soil. I didn't think about it at all. But what do we need? So I said them at the next day, okay, I need so much million a year to do that, 5 to 10 years. I don't know exactly, but that's what I think. And then they said, yes, okay, for the first year, you get 4 million. I said, okay, so then we can start. So suddenly I was in Poland. And I didn't understand, what should I do here? I want to go to Denmark or to Sweden or to Norway, but I didn't want to go to Poland. So, and then Manfred Klett is still one of my best friends, and is somehow my spiritual leader. He said to me, yeah, that's Schicksal. I don't know in English.
Fate.
Yeah. So that was my Schicksal to be there. And now my sister found out, she was researching a bit our family. And she finds that our family, biggest part of our family were Jewish people living in Koszali. That's about 60 kilometers from Jugovo. And they have a fabric to produce clothes. So that was industrial people, and they was under the hand from the king. So they was protected by the king that they could produce there. And they went to Berlin and to Amsterdam. After that, the times changed, they go there. And so that was for me like, I always feel at home there. I always feel completely well. And that, now I know why. So, and the idea, the impulse there was, okay, what could we do? Because you have to see that the landscape is destroyed because of the Russian. They take all the water out of the landscape. They make drainage very, very deep. All the landscapes elements are gone. All the trees, all hedges are gone, and they make their 5 years plan and a lot of fertilizer, not much organic manure to have a bit of a yield. But you know how it ended. As all that old kolkhoz, they all get bankrupt. So the soil was bankrupt because it was below 1% humus content. Then the building was all destroyed, and the people was without education and without motivation. And that are 2,000 hectares so arrondiert, I don't know in English. Arrondiert, also zusammenhängend.
Well, enclosed. You use that.
Enclosed,
Well,
and 4 villages on it. And because I was 30 years old and I was a farmer and I wanted to do something and I didn't think a lot about culture projects and so on, such stuff. But then I feel that, okay, the soil is destroyed and the water is not there and we have to do something, because the base of the agriculture, the base of the economical life is nature, education, agriculture, and love. And that are the things what produce but don't use. But everything what's coming after that, the industry buys the grain and use it for some stuff and so on. So that's not, the economical life is after the farming. So when you have a sustainable farm system, it's the Urzelle des Wirtschaften. Also the how do you say, the
I think I would call it the root or the kernel of the economy.
Yeah, exactly. So and that is what also is misunderstood. So they talk. Of course, you have agriculture, but it's a culture. So the English word is beautiful because it's agriculture. It's bringing culture. It's art. It has nothing to do with economical life. Of course, you have to be balanced and you have to be somehow make a little profit that you survive. But it's very difficult to make high profits with sustainable agriculture. And that place we started below zero because we have no humus content, we have no water, we have no cows, we have no manure, we have nothing. So it was a Schöpfung aus dem Nichts. Yeah. So we have to with nothing, we have to produce something. And that's so beautiful in nature that when you do the right things in the right time, nature will recover very fast. So, and then I thought, okay, I was young, I started with composting and bringing out compost onto the field, and I see nothing happened because the soil fertility was so bad and the pH of the soil was so low that there wasn't any microbes at all in the whole soil. So normally one spoon of soil has so much life in it, like all the human beings on earth, and there was nothing anymore. So when you're going in the morning at 4 o'clock, you're going outside. There was no. I still forget that always forget. The soil wasn't wet anymore. No towel. Also no moisture. Yeah. So when you have no moisture and you have the high temperature in your soil, microbes cannot live. So then I thought, okay, what can I do? What can I do? And then I have a visit. I always have a lot of beautiful people visiting us in that farm. And one visit I still remember, of course, I don't want to forget all the other ones, but one was very special. That was Karl Ludwig Schweisfort from the Schweisfort Stiftung. And that was the founder of the Herta, when es die Wurst geht. It's a real big industrial meat business. And his child are good friends of me. And his child said to Schweisfort, to Karl Ludwig, said, yeah, Papa, your business, we don't want to do that. You can sell it and you can do what you want, but we will do something organic and we don't want to deal with that. So he sold his business and he gets from Saulus to Paulus. And starting with ecological farming and with how do you say, handcrafted meat products and cheesery and everything in bakery, and that was a beautiful thing. And my good friend, he's in heaven now, Günther Postler, but also do the breeding project. He died 4 years ago, much too early, with 60 years old. He brings Karl Ludwig Schweisfort to Hobel, and then we drive around and we have a big drainage project, 800 hectares. We have to rebuild the drainage system. And then he saw that and he sent me a book. I get a lot of books of him. One book I get from him was from Sepp Holzer. And Sepp Holzer makes incredible things in Austria. He makes water landscapes. he makes buffer zones, and he makes everything what is impossible. So I get very inspired to do the same in Jogobo. So we built about 30 hectares of lakes. And they say to me, now the Dutch guy is completely out of mind. So we start to build a dam. So he said, okay, he will wants to go back to Holland because he wants to build dams. We build dams in dry landscape. And there's a bit tricky, but then the water, the groundwater and the rainwater is standing behind that dam, and in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we have completely lakes into the landscape. So, and the water have the function in the nature to cool down the landscape in the summertime and to warm up and buffer the heat in the wintertime. So the extremes are gone. And of course, the moisture is there. And then the second step I did, I make a plan to plant hedges. Because we have fields that were 250, 300 hectares big without any landscapes elements. So we start to plant hedges each 40 hectares to create microclimate. And then it makes click and the system starts running. So, of course, it was very difficult because a lot of hedges are dying and dry out, and we make a lot of mistakes. But somehow the system start running, and I always love to say that was a patient of the how do we say patienten.
Patient, yeah.
Yeah, on the intensive care. Yeah. So the soil was so ill, and there was nothing possible anymore. So we have to do really big things to change that. And it was successful.
But so to come in here, you basically got into impact because you wanted to surf at the age of 13.
Yeah.
So
yeah, maybe I'm still surfing.
Yeah, you're still surfing, but impact became second nature to you, right? Because of that, because
yes.
because it was so, or maybe even before that, it became completely natural to you. Now, what you did was to speaking of completely natural, what you did was to come up with ways to restore ecosystems that were broken up by fragmented interests from the outside. You called it industry, but essentially the earth literally was sucked dry from that, and so was the land, so was the people, so was the culture, so was everything.
Yeah.
So you found ways of putting life back into that, and by doing that, you found ways of making it profitable, if I understand correctly, or at least livable, right?
Livable.
So livable in the sense that it actually supports people who live there with their life. And now the question is, when you look at the broader world, what you call this the root of all economic activity, agriculture, right? That's where the food comes from. That's where life comes from. When you look at higher levels of economic activity, do you see something that you have learned on this holistic approach and this perspective on the world that you think could be transplanted into other forms of industry, and so they can learn from you to change other systems, other ecosystems that are not necessarily natural ecosystems?
Yes, of course. As I mean, I didn't finish at all. You mean what I want to say is that the culture impulse on the countryside is that you when you manage to installate such a holistic system, then economical life comes back again. And the people have needs. So they want to have bread and cheese and meat and so on. So then the processing is coming back into the village. Yeah? So the processing is coming back. And that's the economical life. So, and what I see worldwide, the villages are dying. In France, in Germany, in India, everywhere. The villages are dying. The industrial agriculture takes over. So the industry takes over. So they have a lot of stolen money. They can invest in soil, and they do it a lot at the moment. And one thing was very important, because what I learned from my first situation, my first farm, I never want to rent a farm from a private person anymore. And that farm was completely owned of his own. Yeah. So it was a foundation, but belongs to his own. And the whole soil was in the whole ownership is in ownership of the foundation. Nobody can sell it, nobody owns. So there's no speculation possible. And that's very important for a sustainable system. And what I learned in all that years, and I have, of course, that beautiful man, Manfred Klett, around me. For 12 years long, we called each Sunday evening at 8 o'clock. And we talk about world and about all the processes. And what I think what's a very good thing is to, when you want to bring in happiness into the world, you have to work together. Alone, you are nothing. So it is all about brothership and sistership. It's all about what's the problem of the other one? How can I solve the problem of my business partner? And when you do that, you will always get help. So it's somehow, let's say, what's the question? What do the other need? What do the farmer need to produce the milk tomorrow again? How much money do we need to produce the milk tomorrow again? And then you will have a sustainable business. And so I think, because you cannot do everything yourself, you can be a good farmer and a good cheeser and a good trader and a good, you always want to do that, yeah, like idiots like me. I tried everything, but it's good to be good in one thing and to work together in a good cooperation. It's an association of partnership and trade with other guys. So
the division of labor, right, in the most practical and most foundational rooted sense.
Yeah, of course, and it should be all entrepreneurships, yeah, independent entrepreneurships, but working together because they want, not because they must, but they want, and that's a very important thing. It's Helmi Abuelais and me, and we talk about the economy of love. Yeah? So what do I care about the other or not? And that starts with the soil, it starts with the animals and with your employees, but it ended never. It's always the same thing. Yeah? We have to take care about each other, and when we care about each other, we will live in another world. And Yehovo is a place now, they're working 180 people. And I think it's a place of happiness and love. And it's, of course, beautiful landscape, beautiful people, beautiful buildings. So it's a place of hope. And that's what we need nowadays. And I think nowadays, in that crisis we have now with Ukraine and Russia, and I think also America have his part in it, it's more necessary as to do it as fast as possible to create a lot of that kind of places. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you effectively use investment money,
yes,
to turn this into life in the most concrete sense, and love in a region in the world, and turn that into a functioning center of an economy.
Yes.
Where things can grow from, economical activity can grow from. Now, this is not the standard view on how you would think about the economy, right? So I guess it's very hard to find people to finance this.
Yes, very difficult.
So talk a little bit about how that's worked in the past and how that is working out for you right now, and what are the difficulties and what works and what doesn't work in the financing of these kinds of ventures.
Yeah, no, to that time of Jehovah, I was very lucky because I'm still in contact with him, is Mr. Manfred Snell, Mr. Peter Snell, that is the founder of the Software AG Stiftung, and then Manfred Klett, who was a good trio somehow, and I think. And he spent a lot of money on Jehovah because he said it's very important to do something back for the Polish country after Second World War, because the Germans started shit and the Russian takeover, it was not so much better. And then you have the destroyed landscape with destroyed people and a lot of pain in the landscape. So we have to do something back. And I think that biodynamic agriculture have a possibility without getting romantic. Yeah? So when you starting a holistic approach, the beauty comes back. So when you bring it together, what belongs together, then beauty comes back and happiness comes back and economical life comes back in a sustainable way. So and maybe I was a good speaker. So I always running around everywhere in the world to talk about Jehovah and ask for money to spend on, let's say, finance the land, finance the buildings, and starting all the projects, because it wasn't belong to me. It was very easy for me because it was nothing for me. I rent my own house because I didn't want to have any ownership, because I get bored about that. Ownership is something for the past, it's not for the future. I thought to that way, and so it was for me very easy to ask people for money. And also Manfred Klett makes a lot of that work because he was like the shaman here, it's like the guy around, the good spirit around the farm, to support us, to write letters to people, so we get a lot of money also from small gifts. It was not only the software shift, it was only a lot of other people. And to that time, a lot of people thought we are all crazy. Yeah, what are we doing there in Poland and so much money? And I said always, Greece was more expensive. So that time it was Greece that get a lot of money of the EU because they was in crisis. And I said, each euro we invested here, it's good invested money because it spends future. And so was always difficult and always exciting and always a lot of problems to get the money in the right time. So you get bankrupt. But it was possible. And nowadays, I think a lot of people have some more, how do you say, consciousness about what's the problem. So that time, we have big problems with the officials because they say klima, how do we say, protecting the climate, it's not a public good. And I always say, hey, we are how do you say, we are buffering 6,000 tons of CO2 each year in this farm. Yeah. So that's climate. That's good for the climate. That's some common good. So we should get money for that. So that time they all say that he's completely crazy. It's farming, and that is fertilizing, and he wants to get money from us. So what is he doing there? So we take a lot of, let's say, public money, also gemeinnütziges Geld, Schenkungsgeld, to invest in farming. So it was always like, it was not so easy to talk with the finance guys of the government. They always say, "What is the guy doing there?" And he is somehow taking maybe criminal money to get it right. But I always could show what I do for that. So I build all the buildings and building up fertility of the soil and so on. So they believe what we are doing. Nowadays, maybe it's easier to understand for a lot of people what it means to let's say, a climate farmer. Yeah? But there's also a lot of greenwashing. So I don't like to sell my CO2 certificates to people what makes stupid things with that, because I want to save Earth. And I want to have I want to have a sustainable system. So we should get money as a farmer for our public work we're doing. So biodiversity, CO2, and all the other stuff. So and the biggest problem I think I'm facing now is now I will rent a farm again from a private guy. Because
something you never wanted to do again.
Yeah, but I have to, because I don't want to sell it. Because he said, yeah, what should I do with all that money? We have an inflation of maybe 7% now, and my money will get lost. Then I said to him, Peter, I have an idea. You sell me that farm. We put it into the foundation because I don't want to own it. And for that money you get from me, you buy more land and rent it to me. But he didn't want to do it. Maybe in the future, I don't know. So the biggest problem is the price of land. So for example, on the island Rügen, Iceland Rügen is like that. The farmers get in the 90s, they get that soil for €1,000 a hectare. They bought it for €1,000. So that is like a gift. And now now you need to pay 35 to 40,000 euro a hectare for the same hectare. So when they tell me, yes, and you follow, you get the money, and the soil is bought from a foundation. That's very easy. Then I say to them, yeah, and you get the farm also for nothing, because you pay only 1,000 euro a hectare. The difference is you are a millionaire and I'm not, because I spend it in the foundation. Yeah, and you keep it in your private ownership. And when you want to make sustainable agriculture, you cannot pay 35,000 euro a hectare, because you cannot pay the how do you say, the interest of the bank. So I think that's the biggest problem. So to find investor, but say I buy land and I make a gift to a foundation, and not a family foundation. No, a foundation what owns himself, because that's the most important thing. I think that's the biggest problem. And now I'm struggling to get about 200, 250, maybe 300,000 euro to start the fruit farm, to take over the fruit farm, the business, because I'm very bad to ask for money for myself. I think maybe that's the biggest problem I have. And of course, it's a renting farm. It's not a buy. It's not a bought farm. Maybe I'm not up to date with the finance stuff. I was never really good in that, to get finance for my own projects. I always get money at the end.
But I understand it's a different story. Asking for
different story. Yeah. Everybody wants to have interest. Everybody. For me, maybe I say something stupid, but I think that whole money question is about interest, and is about power. And let's say there are a few people what are so how do you say, heartful, or so, like Mr. Peter Snell. I don't know any people so generous and give their money away because they think it's the best way to do something with the money and to create impact. So Mr. Snell gives all his money, all his ownership into the foundation, and with that money they support a lot of projects around the world, schools and farms and so on. So it's very difficult to find such people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the question is somewhat about incentives. So yes, you can find people who have accumulated a lot of money, and then because they have maybe changed their mission from accumulating a lot of money to doing something meaningful in the world, and then they find out that in a past fossil fuel economy, the roots of a healthy economy actually is life, is where life comes from, and that is agriculture. But an agriculture that is detached from fossil fuel is a different kind of agriculture than industrial agriculture. So
yes, especially the whole world get ill because of the not good food and too much meat, and so the whole system, the whole ecological system gets destroyed. So the true costs are much higher. That's my organic farm.
That's right. And but at the same time, as you were saying, you're doing a service to the commons, right? By restoring land, and you've shown successfully in the past that you can do this. We can successfully bring life back to land. So, and now you're basically saying that it is incredibly hard to find the money that is required to for you to be able to bring life back to the land. But at the same time, it's the root, it's the source of the economy, of the new kind of economy, right? So do you see any movement in the regulatory environment that is headed in that way? That any changes in subsidies for agriculture, any changes in how investments are made that could support the kind of life-giving activity and ventures that you're doing?
Yes, I see a change. There. But I always see also a lot of egoism pops up in that moment that the people get power. So a lot of people get changed by money. And I can get very sad about that because, a farmer will always milk his cows also when he gets 10 cents or the 50 cents. He will always do his job because it's about love. It's about heart. And it's about taking care about animals and soil. And we have some movements. So I'm now at Catharina at the Bodemzee, and there are some investors what wants to invest in sustainable systems. And I think it's really good, and I want to support them. But I would like to know what's the motive exactly. Why they are doing that? Do you want to have that in ownership of yourself? Do you buy land free and give it to young people to farm on it on a good, sustainable way? But what is your motive? Why do you doing that? I want to find out. Because I'm not sure. Because the money nowadays looks for invest. And invest what hold the value. So in buildings and soil and gold. So I'm quite unsure. Of course, you have the GLS Bank. Of course, you have a lot of banks that are going sustainable, and this GLS Bank is, of course, a bank that makes a really great job to do that, and we have to contact them. And maybe it's also my problem that I cannot organize the money I need for my farm now, and I would love to have somebody who would do it for me.
But the question is, um, so you don't see any real shift in the system. So that, for example, if subsidies, if government subsidies were to shift from supporting industrial agriculture
That
to
will be great.
the kind of agriculture you're doing, that would be a significant shift, because suddenly you wouldn't have to ask for that money anymore. And the reason why they could decide to do that shift is because, based on your argument, what you're doing is the foundation of the new kind of economy.
Yes.
Once we detach from fossils, which we have to do, there's no doubt about that, right?
Of course.
What is going to be the root of the economy? It might very well be agriculture. And
and you have to count the true cost. Huh?
Exactly.
So that whole war in Ukraine, from my point of view, it's a fuel. It's a fossil. It has nothing to do with Ukraine. It has nothing to do with Russia. It has to do with interest of USA and the Russian and the dealing with gas and fuels and such stuff. And so when we have the change of the sustainable agriculture into economical life, so when the economical life takes over the sustainable thinking, then we have a peaceful world. Yeah. So the whole CO2 problem will be solved. The whole problem about oil will be solved. The whole problem about energies will be solved, because we need more energy in the future. We have to produce local energy and produce heat rain or electric for cars and for movement and so on. And so everything is there. We know how to do, but we don't do it. And I know quite a people would have money, but I'm not sure if they want to spend their money on sustainable systems without getting anything back.
Well, that leads into a whole different set of questions, because something's coming back. It's just not financial capital, right?
Yes, of course.
It might be other forms of capital, and the question is, it's a bet on the shape of a future economy.
Yes.
Our current economy is based on burning fossil fuels and basing financial systems on top of that, and then running the rest of the economy on top of that, and seeing nature as a part of that whole economic system. Nature and people.
We can use it. We can use it. Yeah.
Exactly. And the question is, fossil fuel will go away for one reason or the other. So one reason could be the negative effects of burning fossil. Another reason could be we're just running out of it, and it becomes too expensive to get the rest out of the ground. So either or, it's going to go away. Now then the question is, what is the foundation of the new form of the economy? What's the absolute basis? And if you accept that fact, then the wise investment would be to put financial capital into the economic foundation of the future, because that is where you will be in the future. Now you see people like Bill Gates investing enormous amounts of money in buying land in the US and otherwise, and I wonder whether that's a function of what we just described here. That the knowledge that this is where the source of the wealth will be in the future. But it requires an entirely new way of thinking. But it's actually, while you pointed to that beautifully a couple of times, that people thought you were delusional, because you were doing these things, putting dams into Poland and things like that. But in effect, you were doing that. You were going through the mechanics of bringing life back into that place. Now, you could say the same thing about the economy. Are you delusional in thinking that there's an economy that's based on life and land and love? Maybe not. More likely not, because we all have to breathe fresh air, which comes from healthy ecosystems.
Still a common good. Still a common good.
Yes.
Water isn't a common good anymore.
Yeah.
Air still is a common good.
Yeah.
Maybe the next 50 years.
So these are the foundations, right? We need to eat all of that. Not common goods at the moment, but maybe there's a version of the economy that has that. So, in other words, a wise investment decision in the long future would be into that direction. But you're telling me that this doesn't happen. You don't see that happening because you're struggling with that investment.
Nou ja, also, how do you say? It's a big act to say I give my money away to buy land free. It's a big act, huh? And maybe not everybody have the possibility to do that because they have their own interest. I'm not sure. I don't think you can ask people to do that. So people have to move in their own heart and say, yes, I will do that. I will buy land and give it to farmers in a sustainable way, in a foundation. What don't own me, what don't belong to me, but have some rules. Of course, you can have some rules. You have to work ecological way. You have to do it sustainable and so on. And no conventional agriculture. That could be some rules you need. But it should be freedom in it, and I think that's very difficult for people to do that. But then they will say, okay, yeah, that's Sebastiaan. They have no ownership at all, and it's easy to talk for him to say that you should give your money away when you have some. So I'm very careful to say that. Yeah? But what I think is when we want to have a sustainable future for our kids, we have to do something and we have to act very fast. Yeah? Because now the lobby of the industry, agriculture, the lobby of the industry at all, the whole industry is based on that agriculture. On that agricultural system would destroy our earth. And now in that Ukraine's bullshit stuff, what's happening there, and we have no grain anymore for Ukraine. We're all afraid to die. Yeah, we're all too fat in Germany. Yeah, we eat too much pigs. And what's for much more my point of view is look at Somalia, where the people are dying because they cannot afford to buy the grain. So it's a perverse system. It's really, really, really bad what we are doing there. It's incredible. It's incredible. And we should close all the pig farms, and we have less cost in our health system. Yeah, count the true cost of what we are doing, and then it's just so clear that we have to go sustainable in a sustainable future.
Well, let's take one example, one concrete example. I don't know the exact numbers, but conventional milk in the supermarket in Germany currently costs around €1 something.
Not at all. No. Less.
Okay.
Around maybe €1 when it's in a glass bottle, but okay. It's about 60 cents.
Okay, 60 cents, and a ecologically sourced liter of milk in Germany would cost how much?
€1.14, 15, maybe a conventional liter. I never buy conventional milk, so I don't know.
So
maybe 80 then.
But if you count in the subsidies that go into the conventional industrially farmed milk, the number is more like something like €3 or €4.
Yeah. When you count the true cost, the impact
that's part of the true cost, right? That's not the entire true cost, because you're not even factoring in the negative externalities by the farming method. So that's even higher. So if you factor that in, it becomes several euros for that 60 cent traditional milk liter, whereas the other one that comes from Demeter or something, and you're paying maybe €2 for that signature. All of the negative externalities have been incorporated in that bottle already.
Yes, yes, exactly.
And so it's actually much cheaper.
Yeah, and yeah, of course, it's cheaper as €1.15 because when we do a good job and we have our cows in closed systems, we build up humus. So we taking out CO2 out of the air. So we're helping the climate to get better. So maybe you shouldn't pay €1 at all for that biomilk. So that's the difference. And all the so the profits will be privatisiert, and the cost get on the common. So all the people pay the cost for conventional industrial agriculture. And we pay all the costs of the whole industry at all with our tax. And I didn't see a change there. Yeah, okay. I didn't. So the lobby in Brussels and around the world is so strong and so completely, how do you say, equipped with money and power that the sustainable movement have not much possibility to work against that. And of course, a lot of big companies say now we have to go green and we have to go this and we have to go that. But I'm not sure they really mean it seriously, because they're always somehow in a market and have to be strong enough to survive. Maybe a few companies really go sustainable. I hope so, but I'm not sure.
But you're not seeing a systemic shift, and you're also not seeing a shift from a policy perspective into that. No. And let's go into two questions. Just to be really clear on what you meant with that. I think I know what you mean by that, but let's spell it out for the people who listen. You say the current mode of agriculture is killing the planet. Can you talk about that a little bit, just to make it really clear how that works?
That somehow means that what I said before, when you ask the question, what do Earth need to produce tomorrow again? Then you will go sustainable and you will be organic, because all the other systems destroy soil fertility and needs a lot of energy to produce the fertilizer. And how can I say that? Could you ask that question once again, but in another way?
No problem. So what is the mechanism of exploitation that is currently happening in the agricultural sector that is leading to soil depletion, to deprivation of nutrients in the soil? I mean, at this point, we could bring in this Netflix documentary called "Kiss the Ground," that creates a really good picture of what's happening. Right, it's really worth watching that, because essentially what it says is, if we continue with industrial agriculture in the next 60 years, then that's it, because then we will have sucked all life out of our soil to an extent that it simply cannot produce anything anymore. And we're not even talking about the runoff and other negative externalities. So that's basically the question. What's your perspective on this exploitation?
Difficult question, because it are different. Maybe in German I can tell, of course, better, but But what I think is the problem is the egoism of the people. So, for example, the crisis we have now, we have no grain out of the Ukraine anymore. And the people in Africa are suffering. We are not suffering in Germany. We have a bit of higher fuel prices, and but nobody is driving slowly on the highways. Huh? And so we it's all about power. So we make our after Second World War, we have to produce food because everybody was have hunger or somehow have some. I think it's how we say psychose of the whole world. We have to produce food like hell, and we have to get and everybody gets overweighted, and
okay.
and other diseases come up like diabetes and so on. And with that system, we produce so cheap. Let's say cheap because we don't pay our cost to the environment for the energies, because we use the fossil energy to produce fertilizer. We poisoning our crop to get healthy, and destroy soil fertility because we don't need soil fertility anymore in that system, because it's only about nutrients. So, and then we ship that whole stuff, that poisonous food, what is no Lebensmittel, that's only Ernährungsmittel, how you say, are nutrients to survive, but not to live. Yeah. Not spending life. We bring it to Africa and destroy the local markets there to produce more and more and more. And now they are.
Let me translate that for a moment, because I think it's very, very nice. You use the German word for food, right? Yeah. Which is Lebensmittel, which is literally life stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's what you need for life, right? I think that's a very important distinction from simple nutrition, which is something you need to survive, but not to live, right? That's Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my philosophy is also, when you're eating good food, really good produced food, it changes your mind. Yeah. But that's another story. It's a more philosophical story. But I love to talk about that, because when you eating food what is only growth with nutrients, with fertilizer, I think your brain gets stuck in somehow minerals processes, but it's not possible to go to the left, to the right anymore. And when you're eating food what's produced with soil what is alive, and with people what is happy or feel happiness, you get a completely other mindset. But that's another way. So, but what happening? It's what I want to say. It's all about power. Yeah? So we have a lot of power on Africa and other continents because of the food situation, and now the climate situation is working for that process to not get sustainable, because we have a lot of power. We get more and more and more. The only problem is all that people what wants to come to Europe. That's a problem for us. For the rest, it's a super business model, to make money on cost other people. And how should I say that? I think the only possibility to change that is that when the people feel it themselves, what's happening. When they see there are no birds in the garden anymore. And now you see it with the Ukrainian people, with the poor people, what's coming to Germany. Everybody say, come here, you're all welcome. And what's with all the people in Belarus sitting at the border to Poland, coming from Syria, what get the same bumps like the Russian bumps like the Ukrainians. So my hope is when it's getting closer and closer to yourself, when the atom reactor explode near to Germany, they will wake up. Yeah, hunger we will never know, but so I'm not sure how to answer that question.
So you're basically you're saying this doesn't seem to be a rational way out of the old paradigm of doing the economy. What we need is some major force that pushes us out into a new way of doing things.
I love that movie, Don't Look Up. It's so beautiful because that describes how stupid people can be. So don't look up, and then it's not there. And I'm afraid that now let's say positive, in the positive way. When we little people, so it have to be a movement from bottom up. So when we start to change, and we farmers say, no, we don't do that bullshit anymore, and we have a strong message to our consumers to buy our stuff, I think something will change. So I'm not so negative about that. Will something change? But I'm afraid that only a few people have so much power, and maybe they have not so much interest to change the system because it's a good business model. So I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. And I hope we don't need a big war to change the purpose, to change the way the owner of the ownership. I hope not. We don't need that. But sometimes I'm afraid about it, that it will happen.
No.
So I have no clear answer on that. I'm hopeful and I'm positive that a lot of people want to get a mind and change the system, but I'm not also realistic that there is a lot of big money and big force against that.
Mm-hmm. And what I'm hearing is that you don't see a way to change the stream of the money because it's so intertwined with the current mode of the system.
Yeah.
That is no real way to unlock that without a big intervention. Not even from the policymaker, not from some policymakers, some individuals, some this and that, but not at a scale that is relevant. Now
we're completely running out of time.
So when you say you were running out of time, what do you mean, and how much time do you think we have left?
We have only 10 years left.
And
to change the climate, to help the climate to not change in a worst case. Mm-hmm. And I see now we are spending our money and our time on the war in Ukraine. Before it was COVID, and I didn't hear the how do you say the agriculture minister of the Minister of Agriculture of Germany. I didn't hear him once the last 2 weeks about the discussion. We have to produce food for the rest of the world, and we have to change all the biodiversity land into Weizen, and nothing. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I feel like that. I think Habeck tries to make a good job, but I see no vision. Mm-hmm. And I'm afraid about that. Yeah, because we are running out of time, and we have to change the system as fast as possible. And don't you hear on that bullshit of the lobby that we have to go more and more conventional farming because it's the best way to feed the world. But they will get right when we go on with it, because the climate will change so fast that 40% of the people worldwide will get in problem. Will get in really seriously problem. We have to feed them. Huh?
Let's be concrete. So based on your experience with creating syntropic agriculture systems, how much land is used, or how much land needs to be cultivated in order to feed one person?
2,000 square meter.
So 2,000 square meters. And
I think maximum. Yeah.
So
but you don't need so much.
That is a tiny portion of the land mass that we use for civilization at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So there's no argument that it's not possible to feed the people with.
Of course not. Of course not. It's absolutely possible. But yeah, so that's what sometimes where I get desperate about, because it's possible. We know how to do it, and we don't do it. We don't do it enough. Of course, there are a lot of beautiful people who do their best each day to change the system, but the system is so strong and so powerful that I'm not sure we will manage that. So maybe it's a bit of negative now, but I will go do my work each day and try to change a bit what I can. But I hope it's enough.
Well, I think it's well. We can try and always find a positive note about everything, but I agree with you that it is we're at a really serious inflection point for humanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's the scary thing is that we are seeing this. So if the scenario business as usual from the original limits to growth report from 50 years ago predicts population decline to almost pre-industrial levels until the end of the century. That is, if you correct that for natural deaths, that's still more than 4 billion people dying of unnatural causes in the second half of the century.
We are talking about Corona.
About?
We are talking about Corona.
We're busy with
we
Corona.
have bigger waves to face.
Definitely, and so why should we believe in a 50-year-old computer model? Well, the interesting thing is that all of the data, the empirical data of the last 50 years shows us that we are perfectly on track with that exact scenario.
Yeah.
And that other scenarios that we're hoping for don't seem to happen. Yeah. And so we're seeing so very fast movement of towards tipping points in several points in the world. The oceans are heating incredibly fast.
Yeah.
And so are the poles, right? Currently, we're experiencing 30, 40 degrees over the normal temperature at both poles. This is insane. This is scary. And so your assessment of 10 years, I think it could even be shorter to actually make a difference. Because I think in 10 years, we will see the difference to such an extent, and we might have passed the point where we can still do something about it.
Yeah, the point of no return is almost there.
Yeah.
And that's so maybe I'm not good enough, and not brave enough, could be. But somehow I would love to. Maybe we have to make a think tank, you and me, with a few other people, and really try to get 1 million. 1 million. I don't know how much more. 1 billion of euros to buy land. To fuck it and buy land because the 10% inflation we will get. So let's say in 10 years that money is gone. So what matter? So let's buy land for it now when we have it. Yeah, but I'm not good enough. I'm not an economist. I'm a farmer, a simple farmer. So I need some help to get the money when we can buy 100,000 hectares. It's 100,000 hectares, and we make organic farming on it. I will make that part. Yeah, but you know what I mean. So we have to think much bigger, and we have to act like they act. Yeah?
They being the industry.
Yeah, the industry, or let's say there would, I don't know how much money. I think half of the money belongs to 25 people on the world.
Yeah, a busload of old white men have half the
money. And especially the problem is that there are men and not women. Yeah, because otherwise we will live in another world. And so that's what I love to do. Yeah? I will spend all my energy on it the next 20 years when we see a possibility to do that, because it's too less. 25% organic agriculture in Europe, it's too less. We need 50%, or do we need at least 50% or the 60% of sustainable agriculture also in conventional systems? Yeah? Maybe that situation now make a mind shift by the farmer a bit, because now they have to use their own organic fertilizer, organic manure, because they don't have fertilizer anymore. But they will argument in the other way. We'll say, okay, we have to have a higher yield, and we get a lot of money for our grain this year, so let's do it. But they will all get in the next autumn. They will have big economics problems, because they have to buy a lot of fertilizer for a lot of money. They have to buy all the things for a lot of money. But most of them already make a contract on the harvest for 2022. So they will get too less money for the cost they have to spend. So the industry is the winner again. So maybe that changed some. Maybe that changed some minds. I'm hopeful there, but I'm not sure. So we really should to think bigger. Huh? Not to talk about 100 hectare. No, we talk about maybe 5,000 hectare farms. And on that 5,000 hectare farms, there are working at least 250 people. And then you start processing, and you make higher units to get more being better in economical life.
And it could also be a great opportunity for small startups, maybe,
of course,
to come in and say, we provide ways of refinement for the produce that you can use locally.
Yes.
So you don't have to buy enormously expensive machinery, but you can do this much more efficiently.
Yeah, and of course, you know, I have nothing against small farmers. So you have to connect the small farmers in good co-ops and cooperation, and organize the market for them, because they are farmers. They should be on the market. They should be on the farm and make that beautiful work. And but give the farmer a share in the marketing system, because otherwise, at the end, we have it all already. All the corporations in the past get big concern like Danone, Nestle, Campina, and so on. Yeah, so that doesn't work. So the farmers should have some power in the other business to don't get forgot in the future. So that's also a part of the sustainable system. And but first of all, we need land.
Yeah, we need land that's part of the commons that then is being used for creating the foundation of life, basically.
Yes.
So that economy becomes possible.
Yes. Yes, and we need. I always love to say, when you have a sustainable agriculture, or the sustainable holistic agriculture system, and from the bottom to the market, with all the different stuff in it, you can learn everything in that. So you can make a farmers' university, an open university on each farm, to teach the young people in that direction, and not in the direction Danone, Nestle, and Bayer wants to teach on the university, because a lot of universities are financed by the industry. So they are not independent. So it's very important to have an independent spiritual life or the universities, schools, what would really teach the people into that system.
Yeah, it's very interesting how David Graeber, when he was doing research for the book that just came out, unfortunately after his recent death, he found it was researching the roots of paid work, paid labor.
Yeah.
And there are different roots depending on where you look, but different specifics, but the root cause, the general root cause is the same everywhere. And that's so, for example, in Germany or in Europe in the medieval times, every city had their own currency.
Yeah.
So in order to, if you came into that city as a new person, the only way to take part in this was to enslave yourself, right? In German, that's called Leibeigener. So you transfer the ownership of your body to somebody else. That's what this word actually says. And in turn, you would get some money to live. Now some of those people were very, very clever, and they in turn had their own slaves. So and that allowed them to free themselves of the situation quicker. But prior to that situation, nobody in their right mind would have ever worked for money. That was unheard of. You wouldn't do that. You're producing, and your produce gets money, but you, for your time, you won't get money, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the root cause of this is actually slavery.
Ja. Okay. I have to ik moet even mijn iPad afladen. Dus ik was de kabels op.
Don't worry. Okay. Okay. So sometimes we ask ourselves, or we ask this question about if you were to look at your younger self, what advice would you give yourself? So you don't need that question because you already changed your life entirely when you were 13 years old and you had a very strong mind about that. But if you were to pick somebody on the planet today and you would give them this kind of advice, it doesn't have to be a young person, it can be anybody. Who would you like to pick, and what kind of advice would you give those person, this person or this group of people? It could also be a category.
I think the most important thing is follow your heart.
But if your heart leads you to exploitation because you are scared of things that might happen in your life, and you want to exploit so you are safe and your family is safe, what would you say then?
I don't know. I also have not always I'm not always sure about what I am doing, but I learn in my life that at the end it will be good. So when I'm following my heart, somehow spiritual world will help me to do the right job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And is there any specific?
And I think look for people would have the same mindset. Mm-hmm. Because alone it's nothing.
Okay.
So the problems we are facing at the moment we cannot solve alone. We can also only solve together. So community is very important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So community and follow your heart.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, because that few people. I have a lot of luck in my life with great people. What coming into my life when I was young, what helped me to follow my heart. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was not an easy trip.
Yes,
but one guy who's very special, Henk Gerbrands, was a doctor. It was an anthroposoph, and he was a good friend of me. He died also. 86 years he died, and he said to me, don't cry about your past. You were strong enough and you were sure enough to go to left home because you know what you wrote, so it's okay. So when you thinking about it is not the first life you're living and not the last life you were living. So it's falling down and standing up. So live your life and live your dream. But it's not so easy. For me, it's also not easy. I'm struggling now to get that money for that new project because I'm afraid. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. Huh? Mm-hmm. So I have the same problem. Yeah. But I try to follow my heart. I try to do it as good as I can. Mm-hmm. And I think open your heart, don't close your heart. And so for that specific thing, I always, maybe sometimes at the morning I try to make my meditation, and then I put on my big jacket. Yeah. So in my mind, like that. To protect myself a bit against a lot of things what make pressure on me. And I think we are not living, when you're trying to follow your heart, you will have also, when there's a lot of light, you have a lot of shadow. So when you try to follow your heart, you also get a lot of forces against that, but you also get a lot of help. And when I put in my jacket like that, I want to take care about myself, but I don't want to close my heart. So never close your heart. Also, when you looking on the television, you see that poor people in Somalia were starving by hunger. Don't close your heart. I think that's very important. You have to deal with what's coming into your life. So you cannot run away for that. That's why I never take any drugs. And I don't drink alcohol at all. Yeah, maybe sometimes a glass of wine, but because I say I want to be open here. I don't want to be closed here. When I'm here on earth, I want to live on earth like it is. And sometimes it's not easy because I think a lot of people try to how do you say, to hide a bit behind
protect,
protect it.
But the key could be community. The second thing you said, because with community you can be protected if it's the right community.
Yeah, you can be sometimes I'm also weak. You are weak, but it's not so much times that everybody is weak at the same time. So you can help each other through.
Okay. Wow, that's another powerful conversation with you, man.
I'm not so powerful at the moment. I'm totally tired. Tomorrow morning I have to leave on 5 o'clock.
Okay, very soon. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But even more, thank you so much for your time and to share your story and your insights. I think it's incredibly valuable, especially for people who are not aware of the perspective of agriculture in the world. And I think that's extremely important to share that with other groups of people. So thank you very much.